Tensions in international trade have reached a new high, sending shockwaves through global markets and boardrooms alike. The world is watching as a new chapter unfolds in the ongoing struggle for economic dominance. This time, the spotlight is on the United States and India, two of the world's largest democracies now locked in a fierce economic standoff. In August 2025, President Donald Trump shocked the world by imposing a sweeping 50% tariff on all Indian imports. The announcement sent ripples through financial markets, catching businesses and policymakers off guard. This bold move escalated long-standing disagreements over trade, technology and market access, putting Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi on a direct collision course. The personal stakes for both leaders are high, as each seeks to project strength at home and abroad. For the US, the tariffs are about national security, protecting American industries, jobs, and technological leadership from what the administration calls unfair competition. For India, they're an affront to sovereignty and a challenge to its ambitions as a rising global power. Indian leaders see the tariffs as an attempt to undermine their economic progress. Modi responded defiantly, vowing India would not back down, even if it meant economic pain. He rallied the nation, promising to protect Indian interests and urging businesses to adapt. The stakes are enormous. Billions of dollars in trade, millions of jobs, and the livelihoods of countless families hang in the balance. The future of US-India relations is now uncertain, as both sides dig in and diplomatic ties are tested like never before. As the standoff intensifies, businesses and consumers brace for a wave of uncertainty. Will prices soar, jobs vanish, or will a compromise eventually emerge to ease the tension? In this video, we'll break down the reasons behind Trump's dramatic decision, Modi's forceful response, the economic fallout for both nations, and the far-reaching global implications that could reshape international trade for years to come. Understanding this trade war is key to grasping the future of these two global giants and the shifting balance of power in the world economy. The spark for this trade war was lit in Washington, D.C. in early August 2025. Tensions had been simmering for months, but it was here, in the heart of American power, that the first decisive move was made. The world watched as the U.S. government prepared to take a bold and controversial step. On August 7th, the U.S. slapped a 25% tariff on Indian goods, then doubled it the next day, reaching a staggering 50%. This sudden escalation sent shockwaves through global markets and left Indian exporters scrambling to assess the impact. American importers, too, faced uncertainty as prices on everyday goods threatened to rise overnight. The White House justified this as a response to India's continued import of Russian oil, calling it a threat to U.S. national security. Officials argued that by purchasing Russian energy, India was indirectly supporting a regime the U.S. sought to isolate, especially in the wake of ongoing global tensions. The Trump administration framed the tariffs as a tool to pressure India into aligning with U.S. foreign policy, especially efforts to isolate Russia. President Trump and his advisors made it clear, economic leverage would be used to shape the global order, and no partner was exempt from tough choices. Months of behind-the-scenes warnings had failed. Now, the U.S. was making its demands public and painful, diplomatic channels had been exhausted, and private negotiations had reached a dead end. The tariffs were a signal that patience had run out. The message, countries trading with Russia, will face economic consequences. The U.S. wanted to send a warning not just to India but to any nation considering similar moves. The stakes were now higher than ever. This wasn't just about trade, it was a calculated geopolitical move linking commerce to international alliances. The tariffs were designed to test the strength of India's relationship with both the U.S. and Russia, and to see which partnership would ultimately prevail. The U.S. hoped the tariffs would force India to choose between its American trade ties and its Russian energy partnership. For India, the decision was fraught with risk, balancing economic growth, energy security, and diplomatic relations all at once. The risk, a major rift with one of the world's fastest-growing economies. India's response would not only affect its own future, but could reshape global trade patterns and alliances for years to come. The stage was set for a high-stakes standoff, with the world's attention fixed on the next moves of two powerful nations. The outcome would reverberate far beyond Washington and New Delhi, influencing the global balance of power. India's answer to the U.S. tariffs was swift and resolute. Prime Minister Modi declared India would not be bullied, even if it meant paying a heavy price. Protecting farmers, fishermen, and dairy producers, India's economic backbone, became a rallying cry. Modi's government drew clear red lines: no compromise on core sectors, no surrender of sovereignty. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar reinforced this, insisting India's foreign policy would remain independent. The dispute became about more than trade. It was a matter of national pride and autonomy. Modi's defiance galvanized public support, transforming the conflict into a test of India's global standing. India signaled it expects to be treated as an equal, not a subordinate. But this stance also risks a prolonged, costly standoff with the US. The world watched as India stood its ground. With both leaders entrenched, diplomacy has stalled. President Trump declared there would be no talks until India addressed the Russian oil issue. The US expects India to make the first move. India refuses to negotiate under pressure. This hardline approach has frozen high-level negotiations, turning the dispute into a waiting game. Yet, behind the scenes, lower-level talks continue. A US trade team is still scheduled to visit India. These back channels may be damage control rather than real negotiation. Until one side shifts, the deadlock holds, and the trade war drags on. The world waits for a breakthrough that may not come soon. The economic fallout is real and immediate, especially for India. The shockwaves from the new tariffs are being felt across the country's financial sector, with investors and business leaders scrambling to assess the damage. For a nation that has been positioning itself as a global manufacturing hub, the timing couldn't be worse. Moody's warns the tariffs could shave 0.3% off India's GDP growth, threatening its manufacturing ambitions. This seemingly small percentage translates to billions of dollars lost, potentially derailing years of economic progress and putting pressure on policymakers to respond quickly. Foreign investors are spooked. Over $2.9 billion has fled Indian markets, sending stock indexes tumbling. The sudden outflow of capital is not just a number, it reflects a deepening lack of confidence in India's near-term prospects, and it's forcing companies to rethink their strategies. The Make in India initiative faces setbacks as companies reconsider investing in a tariff-hit market. Factories that were once buzzing with activity are now seeing production slowdowns, and boardrooms are filled with tough conversations about the future. For the US, higher import costs mean pricier goods for American consumers and potential job losses if India retaliates. Everyday items could become more expensive, and American workers in export-dependent industries are bracing for uncertainty. American exporters could face new barriers in one of the world's largest markets. With stricter customs checks and possible new duties, the cost and complexity of doing business in India are rising. Both economies are feeling the pain, with businesses and workers caught in the crossfire. From factory floors in Mumbai to assembly lines in Ohio, livelihoods are at stake as uncertainty grows. The longer the standoff, the greater the risk of lasting damage. Prolonged uncertainty can erode trust, stall investments, and make recovery even harder for both sides. This isn't just a political spat, it's a blow to growth, investment, and global supply chains. The ripple effects are being felt by multinational companies and small businesses alike, as supply chains are disrupted and plans are put on hold. The numbers tell a story of rising uncertainty. Markets are volatile, investors are anxious, and the world is watching closely to see what happens next. The stakes couldn't be higher. With so much on the line, every decision now will shape the economic future of both nations, and perhaps the world. India isn't just waiting for the storm to pass, it's fighting back with a three-pronged strategy. First, the government is rolling out targeted support for the hardest-hit industries, offering financial aid and incentives. Second, India is aggressively seeking new markets in Asia, Africa, and Europe to reduce reliance on the US. Diversification is key to building resilience against future shocks. Third, India is boosting domestic demand, redirecting export-focused production to serve its vast home market. This domestic absorption keeps factories running and workers employed. The strategy is about more than survival. It's about building a self-reliant, robust economy. While these measures can't erase the pain of tariffs, they show India's determination to adapt and endure. The government is preparing for a long haul. This conflict is about far more than tariffs and trade balances. The US is using economic power to influence India's foreign policy, especially its ties with Russia. India is caught between two strategic partners, the US and Russia. The dispute tests India's tradition of strategic autonomy and signals to other nations the risks of defying US policy. Russia and China may seize the moment to deepen ties with India, shifting the balance of power in Asia. The trade war's ripple effects reach US politics too, with calls for tougher measures like restricting Indian visas. Trade, diplomacy, and security are now deeply intertwined. The outcome will shape global alliances for years to come. The US-India trade war marks a turning point for both nations. Triggered by tariffs over Russian oil, it's become a test of sovereignty, strategy, and economic resilience. India's markets have been rattled, growth forecasts cut, and a new defense strategy launched. The US faces higher prices and the risk of retaliation. Behind the scenes, quiet diplomacy may still offer hope, but the path forward is unclear. Will India adjust its Russian oil imports? Will the US escalate further? The next few months will be crucial, either for escalation or compromise. The world is watching Trump and Modi as they navigate this high-stakes standoff. The outcome will define not just US-India relations, but the future of global trade and power.